We're about to head into Dale Flint's journalism class. We're drumming them into journalism. They broke history with the first augmented junior high school newspaper in the world that we know of. We're going to bring them a little snack and welcome them. We got the Ledger Dispatch staff here, including Connie, who's the loudest. So you guys ready? You guys ready? Let's go! Let's go! Make some noise! Hey! 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 How are you guys doing? Oh, you guys gotta get more excited than that. How are you guys doing? Good stuff. Good stuff. Hey! All right! You guys all juice boxes.
Alright, juice box for you.
I want you guys to know, just so you know,
Okay, you got one?
I did bring sticker bars for the teacher. For the teacher, they're fun size. We call this a journalistic lie. Fun size. There's nothing fun about a smaller candy bar. And the teacher can hand those out or use those as a special favor whenever she'd like. This is, by the way, the staff, your counterparts at the Ledger Dispatch. As a staff, we wanted to congratulate you on the first history-breaking augmented reality newspaper for your age group, for kindergarten to senior in the world that we know of.
Yeah,
The other piece we want to do is make sure we drummed you into journalism and said thank you for making our paper, the Ledger Dispatch, a better paper by the work you did with your newspaper. So that's about it, other than congratulations. Congratulations to you, Dale.
We have, as we are, hi. We have guests in the room, right, guys? Okay. And as training, as current journalists, we have prepared some questions, perhaps, that we'd like to have the time.
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
Cool. Great. Well, you're enjoying your snacks. Some of you have written some really good questions. Please introduce yourself, please, and tell them what you do.
I'm Christina and I'm the editor for the class.
Your counterpart is Caitlin right over there.
Why do you like your job?
Caitlin, why do you like your job?
It's, I think the best part about it is that it's different every single week. So instead of a job where you go every day and you do the exact same thing, every single day you never know what's going to happen as far as news. Sometimes it's going to be something fun, sometimes it's going to be something really intense, sometimes something goes a completely different way than you expected, and you can't plan for it. It's always, you never know when you get up in the morning what the news is going to be. So it's really fun, but it's always different and always exciting. I've been doing it for 3 years and I still never know what to expect.
And
You have that question on your paper.
Caitlin went to Jackson Junior High.
I did.
Caitlin is a Jackson
Once
Junior
upon a
High
time.
Jag.
Yeah.
Yeah, you in the back.
What makes you want to do this every day?
I think part of it is what makes us want to do it every day. I think it's kind of what Caitlin referred to, and that it's just fun and interesting. You never know what you're going to get into. I think there's the public outreach aspect of it, of sharing stories, sharing everyone's story, and that humanity. There's so much in common that you bring people together. I also love some of the things that we've done as far as fundraising for the community. I mean, who would have known that about a month ago, a journalism class would have said, hey, we've got this idea to do an interactive newspaper, and yet here we are. So that's new for you guys, new for us, and and it's taken the world by storm, so it's fun. I mean, that's the fun part. And when you see you can lift people up through what you write and find a commonality, and share your heart and soul, and have them share their hearts and souls with you, I think that makes a big difference.
Plus, we're family.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we do live by a code at work that we have several of them. Our first one's be a gift to the community, build a world-class newspaper, and make sure the font is large enough that everyone can read it. The other one that we live by is there's family. There's family at home, your family at work, and your family that's the community, and we never give up on family. So.
Where should I get paid?
I said to ask it as a general question, like in general, how much do reporters and
How much
publishers
do
get?
reporters get?
Not nearly enough. Would be the answer. It's tough. Journalism, you've seen in the national scope of newspapers, you've seen a lot of newsrooms have been cutting down the size, and you've seen this disappearance, or they call it the loss of journalism, in that they've cut staffing. So you had 9 people doing the job, now you have 3. Now, luckily for us, with the ownership that we have with the Jackson Band and Miwok Indians, they have kind of expanded the newspaper. We have more people involved. We have stringers that write for us, and they've taken care of us in a new building and some other ways, and certainly financially have taken care of us as well.
Could you define stringers for them?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Stringers are basically, instead of being a reporter on the payroll, you can go by piece. You can say, hey, I've got a story. You can call up a magazine and say, I want to give you this story, or a newspaper, I want to give you this story, and they hire you to cover that one story. And they'll pay you by piece,
In the
basically.
journalism industry, there are more freelance jobs than there are permanent jobs. So if you're, especially if you're just starting out, you might be making your whole living freelancing for various different publications.
Do you know what freelancing means?
Free.
So that's the same idea as getting paid by the job. So if you work for the job, or you work for the publication and you're a staff member, you might, like, you get health insurance and you get like benefits. You work a 40-hour work week, you put in a timesheet or punch a time clock. But if you're a freelancer, you do the jobs you want to do. You're not required to do any jobs. You can say you wrote a piece for one magazine and they didn't want it. You can take it somewhere else and sell it to them. So you're kind of your own boss a little bit, but you have the double-edged sword of you never know exactly how much money you make from it.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in on this one if you guys don't mind. Okay, as far as how much do we get paid, that, it depends on how good you are, but when you think of what you get paid, it's also where you get to go. I went to Comic-Con for free
Yeah.
in San Diego.
Cool.
I got to meet actors, I got to see Harrison Ford, I got a lot of that stuff. And I'm from Little Amador County. So it's not exactly the money that they give you, but it's where you get to go, who you get to meet, and what you get to do. So,
Yeah.
Oh, okay. My name is Emma, and I don't really have an assigned job.
That's when you make up your own. Emma, that's
Today, we have
perfect.
some new reporters today.
Yeah, so I'm not really assigned, but
Watch it, they'll put you in charge of circulation.
That's Joe's job.
So is there a reporter?
Oh, yeah, we have several.
Oh, yeah, there's a reporter here, Craig Bronx is here.
Sports guy, sometimes everything.
Okay, so what made you become a reporter?
Oh, put on the spot. He's used to asking the questions, by the way, so if they get nervous, make fun of them.
I used to work in local government as a planner, someone who decides where, helps out where cities get laid out, where the houses go, that kind of thing. Then we had a little recession and we stopped building houses, and I had some spare time on my hands. And I started off as a freelancer, working for a paper and the radio station. And they started sending me to every government meeting that this county has to offer, because I knew how government worked. And that's basically been my mission now, is making sure everyone knows, you know, how their local city councils and school boards and the board supervisors are doing their business and spending taxpayers' money. And
For the watchdog.
yes, that's me.
Yeah, ask them a trivia question.
Oh, I gotta be too busy answering there.
I'm Lauren,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm the assistant editor. And my question is, what was your favorite article to write?
Oh, I have a good answer for this one. You guys might, I don't know if you will have seen it. We had a paper that came out probably 2 months ago with a big fat ice cream cone on the front page.
Oh, I saw it.
And it was this wonderful story of this young man from Ione who has a degenerative eye condition and is losing his vision, and has a visual bucket list of different things that he wants to see before he loses his sight. And one of them was an ice cream truck, and a wonderful group of parents and friends and community members came together to bring an ice cream truck to the park for him and his friends. He got to serve them ice cream, and then they even took like a little side tour to a kid's lemonade stand in town and bought lemonade, and it was just like the best feel-good story I could have ever looked for.
Yeah.
Is it stressful doing what you guys do?
I used to have, is it stressful to do it? I used to have a full head of hair. I used to be thin, but I tend to eat when I'm working, so I've ballooned up nicely. It can be very stressful. There's deadlines that we set that we have to
You
meet.
know that feeling when homework is due and it's not quite done yet, and you're running out of, you're ticking off the hours that night before it's due? That feeling never goes away with
No,
us.
you'll have it forever.
You'll have that exact same feeling constantly.
And the deadlines, and of course, it's a team effort. So the thing I love about newspapers, it's bigger than any one person. But it also means when you get back to that family part that we talk about, is you're relying on your staff to help out. So when I mess up, Sarah at the end of the line says, okay, Jack, I'm gonna have to pick up the pieces on you again. And she does, all the time. Every day. So it really does become this deal where you're always on a deadline, there's always that next piece, so. Yeah.
How long have you get, my name is Gage Martin, and how long have you guys been, working as a, journalism group?
As a group, the newspaper itself has been around since the year 1855. Yeah, we're actually,
Celebrating our birthday.
I believe we are the third oldest newspaper in California, or maybe the second oldest. And so it's been around since 1855. I've been, Beth has been on our staff, has been the longest running current member of the staff.
27 years.
27 years. I am probably the second because I got rid of everyone at one point. No, I'm just kidding. I've been there 17 years. And some have been, who's the new, 9, who's newer? 3. So folks kind of come and go, but we try to keep it as long as we can.
Hard to actually
Guys
get
over there.
What made you want to become a journalist?
Ooh, what made you guys want to become journalists?
I already did this one. You're
Truth, justice, and the American way. Superman, Spider-Man. No, it's really Superman, Spider-Man, the Green Hornet. What do they have in common? What do they have in common?
You're news journalists.
They all worked at the newspaper.
Yeah.
So sometimes late at night, I will show up in my tights down at the newspaper.
It's scary,
Dance
it's
around
very
with them.
scary.
I think for me, it's just the community service and you get to look at so many things and get involved with so many great things. Being a journalist in a smaller newspaper, I used to run a larger daily newspaper, you don't get as involved with the community. There's things, when you ask about stories that we've written, the difference you make, we've raised, we wrote a story about the food bank having trouble when someone sent in $25,000 to restock the shelves, and then my staff came up with a fundraiser and has raised over the years hundreds of thousands of dollars for different organizations, and just do it right. So.
One thing about journalism is never boring, never ever boring. So if you want a job that's always different and always changing,
This is it.
yeah.
Far back corner.
So I'm Mila, and did you contact the Rancheria to fund you?
To fund, yes, in the darker days of the journal. So I worked for the paper, and I actually was let go from the paper. They said, we don't want you anymore.
Oh, that's neat.
And so then I went over to the Miwok friends and I said, hey, I'm looking for a job. And I said, I can scrub toilets, I'm not afraid to work, I can do whatever. And they said, we don't think you're qualified to scrub our toilets, but you do seem to enjoy newspaper. What if we started a competing newspaper And for a short period of time there, in the year 2016, in this month, on October 25th of 2016, we started a competing paper called the Acorn News. The Acorn News lived for about 2 issues because the people that owned the paper that told me to go away sold it to the Miwok Indian, and so we ended up buying the paper that fired me a month later.
So for 1
And then
month,
we
the
had
Acorn News.
8 or so staff members that said, we'd rather work with you, Jack, and so we called them
The hateful
the
eight.
Hateful Eight, which is kind of just having fun. It was not a good time for anybody, but it worked out, and it's been incredible ever
We've
since.
been really blessed.
Yep.
My name's Anya, and my last job was to draw the masthead.
Nice. Beautiful.
Did a great job.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bravo.
Wow.
Well done.
Jaguars.
Where did you get your ideas from?
Ooh, they're all over the place.
Community.
I like to look at what other people are doing a lot of the time. So I actually went to school to be, I was an English major. I wasn't actually a journalism major. I only took a couple of journalism classes when I was in school. So I didn't have a ton of experience doing layout when I started doing it. And so I started looking at other newspapers and other magazines. There's actually a website, if you guys ever want to visit it, called Museum. And they put every front page of every newspaper in the country every single day. And so sometimes when I'm looking for new ideas, I look and see what other people have tried to do. Sometimes I'll have a vision and I'll try it and it's terrible and I have to scrap it. But just looking at other people's ideas and kind of trying to fuse them with my own.
In newspapers, it's very common for newspapers to share their ideas and steal their ideas and say, okay, that looked really cool. And they mark it down and they'll say, okay, so you got contests that they run, and then you'll go through and back through and you'll say, oh, you know what? Or you'll remember it. You'll say, oh, remember that big ice cream cone that came? That's a great idea. And if you're me, what I do is I turn to my graphic artist, Sarah, and say, Sarah, make this look good. And Sarah over there is a great artist, and she sits down and goes through the computer art and puts together pieces, and I don't know, she's more of an originator than I am.
One tip I have for finding stories is actually just being out there and letting people know that you're a reporter and you have the ability to tell people stories. Once I got an official newspaper email, I got this flood of like press releases and story tips and and this sort of thing. It's there's lots of people out there with interesting stories to tell, and they're often just looking for a good outlet. So just being out there and letting people know that you're a reporter creates a remarkable number of leads.
Right.
How many fundraisers have you done?
How many fundraisers have we done?
We're doing stuff all the time. We just did a great big huge one in August called the Taste of Amador. And we got 50 restaurants and wineries together and we raised $17,000 for the food bank.
We a lot of times for the fundraisers in the community, while we may not be running them, we'll run advertising for the fundraisers, or we'll take part however they want it, or sponsor fundraisers. I know in the last year when I used to track our thing, we spent about $250,000 on fundraising, and raised certainly above that. But you're really, because you're the newspaper and getting the word out, the first place they kind of turn when someone comes down, the first couple of places they turn tends to be like the Chamber of Commerce. Newspaper tends to be one that the groups they look at and say, okay, we need help, we need to get the word out. How are we going to do that? Because we have the newspaper, Facebook, Instagram, our augmented reality platform, which is new to us.
Back on Twitter.
And Twitter, we tend to be the spot that people come to get the word out, to help them. And that's the fun part of it, is you get to help the community and help them get their story out and then raise more funds for them. So.
One of the great things too about newspaper, because they look to the Ledger-Dispatch to be the source that's vetted, which means that we've gone through and made sure that what we put in the newspaper is accurate and true. So when they're looking for information, whether it's about an event or a story, a butte fire, whatever it might be, we've vetted that information. So they look to us for the source for the truth.
The truth is very important. You gotta vet all of your stories. You gotta get sources and make sure that you've got everything accurate.
So you clear what vet means?
No.
Can
You
you
gotta
explain vet?
verify the facts, know the truth, know that your sources have told you the truth, that you have the truth, that you verified the truth. For us, we go with 2 sources, not 1. So we go old school. What that means a lot of times is our news is delayed and people will have lots of rumor. With social media, Facebook, you ever see something fake on the computer?
Yes.
I love the computer. I love Facebook, because I'm like, ooh, there's a story, and then you're like, oh no, they just made it up.
It's a
Can't
great
do that
place to
in
look for a
print.
tip, but you, unlike the Facebook sort of rumor places where people can kind of say whatever they want, when we put it in print, it has to be true. So you can start with a tip from Facebook and think, I wonder if that's real, and then make some phone calls and do some research and find out if it's legit or not. And
But when it's in print,
Yeah.
it's black and white, and you are stuck with it, and you own it forever.
As a journalist, what is do you have a normal like routine that you follow?
No.
to an
Although, yeah,
extent, I
yeah, we
guess.
have some.
Do you guys drink coffee in the morning and do it?
Go ahead, Kate.
So we do 2 papers a week. We do Tuesday and Friday. So it usually takes me about a day total to build the newspaper, to like edit the stories, to lay out the pages and kind of put it together. And Jeremy handles our sports section, thank God, because I don't know anything about sports. And I build the other 3 sections. So for the Tuesday paper, we don't print the paper in our office, we print it with an outside company. So we send it to them at 12 o'clock the day before it's gonna show up at your house. Usually, we're shooting for 12 o'clock. So I build the Tuesday paper on Sundays, and I build the Friday paper on Wednesdays. Tuesdays like a catch-up day, but we also we always have extra odds and ends. We have special sections we're working on. If you ever get the paper and it has a magazine in it, that was sort of an extra thing that we had to kind of find time to squeeze in. I've been known to build a magazine on a Saturday, or sometimes in the middle of the night, or whatever.
Sometimes news breaks on a Thursday morning.
Sometimes you never know.
Sometimes Sunday
Sometimes
night,
it breaks
midnight.
right after the paper sends, and then we're online all weekend working on it. And then of course, if it's something that's like a kind of a high stakes situation, like say a fire and there are evacuations or anything like that, we're doing that online on our website and on Facebook, and we're trying to keep people updated, make calls.
Butte Fire, I think I was up for 7 weeks straight. They take 4-hour naps, kind of like the firemen. You go out and shoot and then fall asleep and get your stories. And there was about 5 or 6 of us running around, really just round the clock posting and trying to get the information out.
But didn't the power go out too?
Good question. So the interesting thing is that the Ledger Dispatch, our new building, it is actually a emergency services building. So we actually have generators so that if the power does go out, or if you're in Jackson area and the power goes out and you know something's going on, you can actually come down to the newspaper and know that it stays lit and is a power source so you can charge your phones and get information. So we are actually in emergencies, which is kind of rare for us, but we kind of thought forward. And my owner said, that's a great idea. The Miwok Indians said, you know what, we need to make that an emergency services area. Because remember when the Butte Fire happened, where'd everyone go? All the evacuees went up to the casino. And we used to deliver papers up there during the Butte Fire, and I'd come up and they'd say, what's going on? And we'd give them the phone, we'd hand them the paper, go to their little beds, they had beds out and all that, where they were all sleeping, and we just talk to them and say, here's what's going on. And here, they'd say, oh, thank you, and then we'd plug in their phones and charge, and so, but now we can do that at the paper as well.
So this is a shortened period, we're out at 1:30, so we have time for maybe one more question or so?
Uh-oh.
If you haven't asked a question
Who hasn't
yet.
asked a question?
Leon.
It's all you, Bill.
So I'm just saying that you guys have an emergency. Well, I don't have one. More off the generators. And
That's
the
cool.
question is, how do you get your entire news from the truth?
How do I get my entire news what?
Story, the truth.
How do you get to the truth? The truth. It's very easy in that you have sources when you're doing the stories that will back up what is being documented. Now, the thing that folks will focus on is they'll call it bias, which means what I believe. And they'll say when you're writing, and I always felt when I write, you can have a voice, which means they'll say, oh, that's Jack Mitchell's style of writing. When Caitlin writes a story, they'll say that's Caitlin's style of writing. Jeremy writes sports, that's Jeremy's style. So everyone has a different style of writing, but it should not alter the facts of the story and the truth. You've got to have documented sources. You've got to take care of your masthead and take care of your paper. One of the reasons the newspaper's been around since 1855 and continues to grow and thrive is that we have focused on truth. And when you get into the larger media and they lump you in with the TV and the other larger media, they'll say, well, they are starting to steer. And what they try to do is get political, and they might go down one road or one path or whatever. We really are here to put out the facts of the story, not lead someone down to a certain point. Now, on the opinion page, we can certainly print our own opinions. That's different than news. But in news, it comes down to who, what, where, why, when, and how. And making sure that whoever tells you what happened, because sometimes you get conflicting reports, you need to have who attribute those. You basically say, here's who said this is what happened. And you got to make sure you can back that up. So you got to make sure you have your sources down.
We want to thank you so much, the journalism class, for giving us the opportunity to be published in the Ledger. This is really extraordinary to be able to put this.
You guys got another issue coming out?
At the end of this month. What you can see is we got our story ideas up there.
Go.
And we're going.
You guys take care of your masthead. Remember, the monthly Jag, that is your community, your paper. You guys are the future for this thing. Take care of your community. Take care of each other.
And can we give him a round of applause, please? Thank you so much.
Congratulations, guys. Bye.
This has our
Good job.
newspaper inside it. If you just click
Bingo.
one thing there's us. Thank you so much.
When you guys will be in again next month, we will have Sarah call you to get the deadlines.
That's good. Well, we have our little calendar there. We're working. So those of you who don't have your story ideas in, we're going to talk about that next class.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you guys.